Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 16 articles for you this morning, and all the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. The first article I have for you is off of Newsmax.com, and it says, Trump following London incident. It says, we need travel ban as extra level of safety. President Donald Trump wrote on Twitter Saturday the U.S. needs a travel ban as an extra level of safety following reports of a van mowing down pedestrians at London Bridge. And they have pictures of his tweets up. What it says is, we need to be smart, vigilant, and tough. We need the courts to give us back our rights. We need the travel ban as an extra level of safety. Whatever the United States can do to help out in London and the UK, we will be there. We are with you. God bless. The bridge incident occurred around 10:30 p.m. London time. Police confirmed to the BBC there was more than one fatality, and reports suggest there was more than one incident, including one of men carrying knives at Borough Market and another at Vauxhall. Trump's travel ban has been stuck in the courts. His administration on Thursday filed a petition with the Supreme Court seeking to reverse rulings by lower courts in Hawaii and Maryland that blocked a temporary ban on travel to the United States from 6 majority Muslim countries. The next article that I have for you is off of BizPac Review. It says, after London attack, Trump calls for courts to give us back our rights and reinstate the travel ban. Donald Trump has never had an issue with calling a spade, so when news of the attacks in London broke out on Saturday, it was no surprise to see the president retweet a Drudge Report headline that mentioned fears of a terror attack fully an hour before official confirmation came from the UK authorities. Drudge Report put out a tweet that says, fears of new terror attack after van mows down 20 people on London Bridge. Then an hour later, the president called for courts to give us back our rights and reinstate his travel ban from certain unstable terrorist hotspot Muslim-majority countries. We need the travel ban as an extra level of safety, Trump tweeted, reasoning that the importing fewer people from countries that hate us could possibly hurt and might even save lives down the road. Or couldn't. Try that again. That Trump tweeted, reasoning that importing fewer people from countries that hate us couldn't possibly hurt and might even save lives down the road. There, I've got it right. It's hard to argue with his logic unless you're a liberal hell-bent on turning America into the third world hellhole that Europe is becoming, all for the sake of cheap labor and Democratic votes. Trump's last Saturday tweet on the issue said, whatever the United States can do to help out in London and the UK, we will be there. Trump's tweets drew plenty of support from the right. There's a list of tweets here. One says, Trump was right again. Another one says, this isn't a game we risk our citizens for the sake of political correctness. Spreading Sharia is the goal of the jihad. And strong irrational reactions from the left, mostly accusing Trump of using attacks for political purposes, saying things like March 22nd, Westminster attack, homegrown extremist, May 22nd, Manchester attack, homegrown extremist, travel bans won't stop domestic terrorists. This argument is particularly rich, so Muslims come to the West, breed, and suddenly the terrorism is homegrown. So the liberal answer, of course, is to allow in more, as many as possible. Then the terror their descendants create can be homegrown too. This horrific attack is another, or see, this horrific attack is in another country. Just imagine all the ways Trump would exploit an attack was on U.S. soil, one tweets. Another one says, F you, Trump. Well, that's intelligent. One says, is the timing not suspicious? 3 attacks so close together, so close to an election. right out of the fascist playbook. Tinfoil hats, anyone? Another one says, don't use an incident in my country as an excuse to push your travel ban. Have some sensitivity, for crying out loud. Makes you wonder about the mentality, doesn't it? The next one here is off of Breitbart. It says, Supreme Court expedites Trump's petition on executive order case. The Supreme Court took a rare step on Friday of expediting consideration of a major case, rapidly accelerating the schedule for reviewing the Fourth Circuit's blocking of President Donald Trump's travel ban executive order. President Trump issued Executive Order 13780 on March the 6th, Section 2C of which temporarily restricted travel from 6 Muslim-majority countries associated with terrorism, while the United States developed new vetting procedures to keep the nation safe. Immigration activists sued, along with several immigrants and their families. A liberal federal district judge in Maryland granted a preliminary injunction blocking Section 2C of the EO. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit then affirmed the trial court's injunction in a 10-3 decision, ruling that the EO violated the Constitution's Establishment Clause and taking the almost unheard of step of all the court's judges hearing the case instead of sending it to a 3-judge panel. The U.S. Department of Justice filed a petition for review at the Supreme Court on Thursday. Under the court's rules, a response from plaintiffs would be due by July the 3rd. By that time, the court would be on recess for the summer, meaning that the justices would vote at the court's annual pre-term conference, which will take place on September the 25th, on whether to take the case. That would typically mean hearing arguments in December or January, with a final decision coming down in early or mid-2018. Acting Solicitor General Jeff Wall, the DOJ, also asked Chief Justice John Roberts, who supervises the Fourth Circuit, to stay the appellate court's decision until the justices can decide the matter. On Friday, the Supreme Court rapidly expedited everything. The ACLU, which represents the plaintiffs, have been ordered to file their response by 3 p.m. on Monday, June the 12th. The ACLU lawyers must also respond to the DOJ's application for a stay at that time. The court could conceivably then vote immediately on whether to take the case or anytime shortly thereafter. Under a normal briefing schedule, the court would then hear arguments in October and issue a decision by the end of 2017. It's also possible that the court could accelerate briefing on an emergency basis, then hold arguments over the summer or possibly even in June before recessing for the summer. The court could make clear by the end of June the 12th which course it's pursuing. The next article is off of Liberty Headlines, and it says, Trump tells U.S. to get smart. London death toll rises. President Donald Trump warned Sunday morning that the situation will get worse if the U.S. does not wise up and take steps to improve domestic security. Three terrorists attacked London Saturday night by plowing a van into a crowd of pedestrians on London Bridge, rushing into a popular market area, and stabbing innocent civilians. Authorities shot and killed 3 attackers, but not before they killed 4 and wounded 48. An eyewitness told BBC reporters that the 3 attackers shouted, "This is for Allah," as they stabbed people indiscriminately in Borough Market. As the attacks unfolded, Trump was quick to call for courts to uphold the travel ban, a strategic plan to prevent terror-prone countries from exporting radical Islamic terrorism to the U.S. Trump asked the Supreme Court Thursday to let the proposed travel ban take effect, while the Department of Justice argues that the travel ban is lawful. Lower courts have repeatedly declared the restrictions unconstitutional. The president signed an executive order restricting travel for terror-prone countries 1 week after taking office, but a federal judge quickly blocked the move. The administration released a narrow ban in March, but the courts also opposed the ban. Those in opposition have often criticized the ban as a Muslim ban, although the order does not target Muslim populations in Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, and a number of other places. Instead, the proposed ban targets countries like Iran, Syria, and Somalia. In response to the latest attacks in London, UK Prime Minister Theresa May said that enough is enough, calling for people to eliminate extremism. There is, to be frank, far too much tolerance of extremism in our country, she warned, further commenting that the extremists are bound by a single evil ideology of Islamist extremism that preaches hatred and promotes sectarianism. The next article I have is off of Newsmax. It says, Bernard Carrick to Newsmax. Modus operandi points to terrorism in London attacks. Former New York Police Commissioner Bernard Carrick told Newsmax Saturday that the modus operandi in the London attacks pointed to terrorism. It's premature to speculate as on who and what, but I think it's pretty obvious. Carrick, who commanded the city's forces during 9/11, told Newsmax in an exclusive interview. This continues to be their modus operandi. Metropolitan Police in London said that they were responding to reports of a van hitting as many as 20 pedestrians on London Bridge and stabbing at nearby Borough Market around 10:30 p.m. local time. Police said shots have been fired in the Borough Market incident, and British Prime Minister Theresa May said the attacks were being investigated as terrorism. Carrick told Newsmax that following last month's Manchester suicide bombing that killed 23 people and injured 116 others, the biggest issue is that we're not getting these guys in advance. This was an intelligence failure that I feel is catastrophic. In the Manchester attack, this guy was on their radar, Carrick explained, referring to Salman Ramadan Abedi, age 22, a British Muslim who detonated himself outside the Manchester Arena after an Ariana Grande concert. He was known to British police but not considered a high risk, according to news reports. Orlando, San Bernardino, and Boston Marathon guys, Carrick said, we continue to see over and over again that these guys are on the radar of the authorities, and yet we have failed to stop the attacks. Carrick attributed the lapses primarily to political correctness. We won't go into the mosque. We won't go into the communities. We know who they are, he told Newsmax. We've interviewed them. We've let them go. And they go out and mass murder a large number of innocent people. Our intelligence and surveillance capabilities are not working, Carrick said. It has to get better. Now, I'll get another group of articles up here because this seems to work much better doing this in groupings like I did yesterday. The hamster isn't as stressed. So stressed that all his hair fell out. Hamster. Poor little guy. Okay, I think I'm getting him up here now. And the hamster's running in the wheel on the first article. It's off of BizPack Review. It says, as Londoners run for their lives, MSNBC asks if police are overreacting. As cable news covered the terrorist attacks that rocked London on Saturday, the anchor on one station was mind-numbingly dumb. Richard Liu asked his guest, former Homeland Security consultant Mustafa Tamez, risk of overreacting to the attack. Is there any risk of overreaction of deploying too much? Liu asked. Is there ever a point that's too much, or you shouldn't have applying that much amount of force there? Shot down the ridiculous question. I don't think the response could be too large to get enough officers and investigators there too quickly and find out what's going on. And if too many officers, it's a question of using them adequately, smartly, the help you can get. Article, a BizPack review. Officers working on it here. It says 2 days before the terror attack, a London mayor called global warming one of the biggest risks to humanity. The terror attacks hit London. Mayor Saqib Khan railed against President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. Khan called global warming one of the biggest risks to humanity and pledged to work with other cities to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement for global warming below 2 degrees Celsius. U.S. withdrawal on Thursday. European leaders were also heavily critical of Trump pulling out of the Paris Accord, including UK Prime Minister Theresa May. European leaders pressed Trump on climate deal 7 summit in May. They wanted to talk about fighting terrorism and other issues, not global warming. 2 days later, faced with 2 attacks near London Bridge that have been declared terrorist attacks by British authorities. A white van plowed into 20 people Saturday on London Bridge shortly after 10 p.m., possibly killing and injuring, well, and it did, pedestrians. A group of at least 3 men armed with knives in Borough Market, about 80 yards south of the bridge. British police declared that the 2 incidents were terror attacks early Sunday morning. Few details have been released regarding any casualties. The London attacks come about 2 weeks after a suicide bomber killed 22 people and dozens more were injured in Manchester lobby of an Ariana Grande concert. Young children were among the dead, and the Islamic State took credit for the deadly attack. Grande is scheduled to hold a benefit concert in Manchester on Sunday, and my understanding is that she did hold that concert and it went off without any issues. Article is off of BizPack Review, and it says, "Run, hide, tell." British police have 3-step terrorist plan. Upstart Americans' own 3 steps. London's Metropolitan Police Service has a simple 3-word plan for citizens when under attack by radical Islamic extremists. Run. The tell aspect, what is happening, not to tell the world that you are but a helpless victim. In a tweet that seems to accurately capture the mindset of many European leaders beset with terrorist attacks, Metropolitan Police posted the following tweet in the immediate aftermath of Saturday's attack in London, advice that the UK media was eager to share. They put out a tweet with a little poster that says, "Run, hide, tell. Run to a place of safety. This is a better option than to surrender or negotiate. If there's nowhere to go, then hide. Turn your phone to silent and turn off vibrate. Barricade yourself in if you can. Tell the police by calling 999 when it is safe to do so." Of course, those upstart Americans have their own 3-step plan. Kurt Schlichter put out a tweet that says, "Draw, aim, shoot. The Second Amendment, because defending our people is every American's job." President Donald Trump took to Twitter Sunday morning to denounce the response by London Mayor Saqib Khan to Saturday's terrorist attack and to say for being politically correct, adding that it is time to get down to the business of security for our people. He also targeted the critics of the U.S. gun laws, pointing out that the jihadists used knives in a truck. We must, he put out these tweets, "We must stop being politically correct and get down to business of security for our people. If we don't get smart, it will only get worse." At least 7 dead and 48 wounded in terror attack. Mayor of London says there's no reason to be alarmed. Do you notice we are not having a gun debate right now? That's because they use knives in a truck. Other social media weighed in with their thoughts on the terrorism response plan. Here's a sampling of responses from Twitter, beginning with what may be the most succinct, saying, "That is no way for free people to live. It's a way for free people to die." Another one says, "Run and hide and don't tell what's really happening," is the UK's entire response to the jihad threat. Another one says, "The once mighty British Empire, sad." Another one puts up his own poster that says, "Run, hide, and submit." The advice from the Metropolitan Police to clear into clear language, he says. Another one says, "The new norm, run, hide, and tell. More or wait for more excuses and lies on why this really happened." Another one says, "Laugh it out loud, hide. That's the new strategy since Britain can't protect its people anymore. Shameful and sad." Another one says, "We're not, try it again. We are not cowed. We carry on as normal, sure, from behind a barricade under a table." And there's a whole big slew of tweets on that. If you want to read the rest of those, you can pull that article up. And the next one says, this is off of Liberty Headlines, Mayor de Blasio signs executive order tying New York City to the Paris Agreement. The symbolic resistance against Trump's climate agenda took another step on Friday evening when New York City Mayor de Blasio signed an executive order reaffirming the city's commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement, despite, or rather due to, Trump withdrawing the U.S. from the agreement. New York Mayor's office put out a tweet saying, "We are taking matters into our own hands. We here in New York City are shocked at the development this week in Washington, D.C. to see the President of the United States pull out of the Paris Accord and literally set this nation and the whole globe on the path of denial," de Blasio said. De Blasio's order instructs New York City to adopt the principles of the Paris Climate Agreement, supporting its key principles of reducing greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050 and keeping the global temperature increase below 1.5 degrees Celsius. It also directs the city agencies to work with the mayor's office of sustainability to create a plan by September the 30th to further reduce their own greenhouse gas emissions, and notes that the New York City will work with other U.S. cities, states, and counties or countries to meet commitments set in the agreement. And he tweeted out, "I signed the Executive Order 26 because New York City's future is threatened by climate change. We will honor the goals of the Paris Agreement." The actions of President Trump have undermined what we're doing and what cities and states all over the country are doing. And that means we have to go further, de Blasio said. "We have to take matters into our own hands." In a series of tweets on Wednesday, de Blasio slammed Trump's decision to withdraw the United States from the agreement, calling it horribly destructive. De Blasio joins Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Peduto, who also signed an executive order this week affirming his city's compliance with the Paris Agreement. The next article we have is off of Newsmax. It says, Representative Peter King commends Prime Minister May and calls for U.S. travel ban. Representative Peter King, Republican of New York, praised British Prime Minister Theresa May for her tough statements and action in response to London's latest terrorist attack, denouncing apologies and political correctness in this era of Islamist extremism, and adding a call for President Donald Trump's U.S. travel ban to be restored in the Supreme Court. "I commend British Prime Minister Theresa May for her strong statement calling out Islamists and promising tough action, both militarily and domestically," Representative King wrote in a statement, which was also posted Sunday on Twitter. "No apologies, no political correctness." Representative King then added a call for the Supreme Court to restore President Donald Trump's blocked travel ban from the Muslim-majority countries in the Middle East. And the tweet says, London attack was a wake-up call to end political correctness. Supreme Court must restore POTUS power to restrict entry from countries with many terrorists and poor security. Now we'll get another group of articles up here right quick. So the hamster has something to do. The first one that I have here is off of Newsmax. Senator Blunt says Trump doesn't need ban for extreme vetting plan. President Donald Trump can institute extreme vetting procedure on immigration amid multiple terror attacks in England and will not even need the Supreme Court to restore his travel ban to do so, Senator Roy Blunt said Sunday. My view is the president does have certainly the right to put in place extreme vetting, Blunt told Sunday to air Sunday afternoon per The Hill. Do it without a travel ban. The work of Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly in protecting American citizens, particularly amid the recent terror attacks in Europe and despite the judicial blocking of President Trump's travel ban, according to The Hill. We constantly have to be vigilant, Senator Blunt told Wallace, per The Hill. And I think Secretary Kelly is right when he says only because we have been fortunate and have worked hard to prevent this have we not had these kind of attacks. Next article is also off of Newsmax. And the hamster's working on it here. It says, "Oi, cowards, as killers rampaged." When three men armed with a van and knives went on the attack in a bustling area of the British capital on Saturday night, Londoners fought back with whatever came to hand, in some cases hurling chairs and tables to ward them off. The attack, which saw the assailants kill at least 7 people and injure almost 50 before they were shot dead by police, began with a van being driven at high speed into a crowd of pedestrians on London Bridge. It looked like he was aiming for groups of people, Mark Robertson, a 53-year-old management consultant, told Rutgers. He saw at least 6 people on the ground after the van veered off. After the van veered on and off the pavement. It was horrendous. The knife-wielding assailants then took their attack to near Borough Market, where survivors seen in an area packed with people enjoying a night out in bars and restaurants. Bowles told Sky TV that he was on the street near the Southwark Tavern pub, the scene of multiple stabbings, when he heard someone say, "I've been stabbed, I've been stabbed." Joking, he said. He said he then saw a woman and a man being stabbed while the attackers shouted, "This is for Allah," and recalled to distract the men. As they left, I was going, "Oi, oi, cowards," just trying to get their attention by throwing things at them. Through bottles or chairs, they can come after me. Then police can stop them. They shoot them. Britain's transport police chief praised the actions of one of his officers injured in the attack, who took on the assailants armed only with a baton, who only joined us less than a year ago. The bravery he showed was outstanding and makes me extremely proud, Chief Constable Paul Crowther said in a statement. This is reported seeing a man with a large knife, similar to a kitchen knife, and victims bleeding from stab wounds. They said people were fleeing the area in panic. One witness, who only gave the BBC his first name of Ben, said he saw a man dressed in red who was stabbing a man with a blade that appeared to be about 10 inches long. He was being stabbed quite coldly. Ground, he said, of the victim. The attacker then walked towards Southwark Tavern, was thrown towards him shortly before gunshots rang out. The article is off of Breitbart. Things went cattywampus on that. Hang on just a second. Hamster around. On the wheel now. He got confused. Okay, it says grassroots group being to defund the California sanctuary cities. Initial papers have been filed as part of an effort to take action at a local level to defund California sanctuary cities, starting in the city of Cudahy. Federal officials have repeatedly warned sanctuary cities that their federal funds could cease if they refuse to cooperate with federal immigration law. While letters have been issued to deprive sanctuary cities of funds based on their sanctuary status. This past Tuesday, Joseph Turner filed paperwork to launch an initiative that could deprive the city of Cudahy of 13.5% of their general revenue funds. Turner told Breitbart News that this is an effort to defund sanctuary cities. He filed the new initiative under Proposition 218 as a utility tax repeal. Turner told the local Fox 11 News that his effort could 13.5% of their revenue base for a mere couple $100 and less than 100 signatures. He told Breitbart News that by filing under 218, he only needs to gather 62 signatures from Cudahy voters. It could take 3 to 4 weeks before signatures gathering begins, but once it does, Turner will have 180 days to gather the 62 Cudahy voter signatures. Turner plans to file the next initiative in Huntington Park, California. He said there would need, wow. Try it again. I see it, my mouth's not saying it. He said there he would need around 176 signatures. Huntington Park's city council went so far as to appoint illegal aliens to their city commissioners in 2015, and the backlash from members of the community made national news. Turner founded the group American Children First after Donald Trump won the 2016 presidential election, according to the organization's website. The site states he recognized the short window of opportunity that exists to ensure that promises made on the issues of illegal immigration, border security, and trade are kept. Cudahy city documents reveal that the city council voted on January the 6th of 2015 to adopt a resolution declaring Cudahy as a sanctuary city for immigrants. The small city contracts with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for their policing, according to Fox 11. Cudahy council member Jack Guerrero told the outlet that the city sanctuary designation is symbolic. In late March, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions issued a stern warning to sanctuary cities from the White House briefing room. Sessions announced that cities which continually refuse to detain known felons on federal detainer requests or otherwise family to comply with federal immigration laws. In a single week, there were more than 200 instances of jurisdictions refusing to honor ICE detainer requests with respect to individual charged or convicted of serious crime. The charges and convictions against these aliens include drug trafficking, hit and run, rape, sex offense against children, and even murder, Sessions said. Who called for the halt of sanctuary city policies. Then in April, Sessions revealed that he had issued a letter to 10 sanctuary cities with a direct warning that failure to respond could result in loss of federal funds. He said that the Obama administration issued notices insisting compliance with federal law passed several years ago. He said the 10 cities had received letters under the Obama administration just a year ago. In May, the Attorney General issued a memo defining a sanctuary city in connection with President Donald Trump's January executive order on the issue. Turner's plan is to continue to replicate the initiative effort in other California sanctuary cities. He launched an initiative back in 2005 and 2006 that was replicated in other parts of the country. His prior efforts on the issue of illegal immigration were profiled in the Wall Street Journal in 2006. He hopes this effort could see similar success, inspiring Americans in other states to start similar efforts and initiatives where states allow them. The next article is off of BizPac Review. And it says Obama doomed the Paris Climate Accord to failure in U.S. Blame former President Barack Obama for the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord, according to policy experts, as Obama's decision to forego Senate approval and bank on Democratic win in 2016 made the agreement politically. The Paris Climate Agreement was pushed through against the declared will of the America's elected representatives. Director of the UK-based Global Warming Policy Forum, said in a statement. Trump announced Thursday he would withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Accord. Trump's Paris withdrawal was made easier by a decision made by Obama to unilaterally impose global warming policies. The Accord in 2016, after years of working behind the scenes to craft the non-binding global warming deal, but he did so without submitting it to Congress or to Senate. His signature achievement on global warming, therefore, depended on Hillary Clinton winning the 2016 presidential election at the courts. All the other majority players in the Paris negotiations knew it was a crapshoot. Marlo Lewis, a senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, told the Daily Caller News Foundation. The U.S. credibility on meeting its Paris goal hinged in part on the courts. More than half the states were suing to overturn Obama's signature global warming regulation, the Clean Power Plan. States were also suing over federal regulations on the methane emissions from oil and gas drilling. 2 months before the signing ceremony in April of 2016, they also knew the Supreme Court had taken the extraordinary step of staying the Clean Power Plan before the lower court had even reviewed it, said Lewis, a vocal opponent of the Paris Accord. He and his CEI colleague, Chris Horner, authored a policy paper calling for U.S. withdrawal from Paris. The Supreme Court's decision to halt the implementation of the Clean Power Plan in February of 2016 signaled to the Obama administration and supporters the global warming regulation on power plants could be in legal trouble. Obama pledged to reduce the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions 26 to 28% below 2005 levels by 2025. The Clean Power Plan was the main compliant tool. These were still needed to meet the pledge based on government and independent projections. Clinton's 2016 victory would have ensured the United States remained in the Paris Agreement, but any setback in the courts would have made keeping Obama's plan to cut greenhouse gas emissions even more difficult to achieve. The agreement was always, first and foremost, a political strategy to perpetuate Obama's climate agenda for decades, despite the policy preferences of future presidents, Congress, and the voters, Lewis said, avoiding the Senate. To climate negotiators, it was clear that the Republican-controlled Senate would vote the accord down. So they crafted it in such a way so that Obama would declare it an executive agreement rather than a treaty, which did not need legislative approval. Former French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius told United Nations delegates in Bonn, Germany, "We know the politics in the U.S. Whether we like it or not, if it comes to the Congress, they will refuse." Fabius' remarks came about 6 months before nearly 200 countries agreed to the Paris Accord in December of 2015. About 3 months earlier, White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest was asked if Congress should be involved in crafting and approving the climate deal. Well, these are individuals many of whom at least deny the fact that climate change even exists, Ernest said. So I'm not sure they would be in the best position to decide whether or not a climate change agreement is one that is worth entering into. Republicans had swept the 2014 midterm elections, claiming control of the Senate from Democrats. That pivotal election likely changed the White House's strategy about how to join global climate treaty. Republicans said they would vote down any climate agreement Obama's placed before them, so the administration joined Paris in 2016 and treated it as an executive agreement that needed no legislative approval. U.S. leaders and critics warned international leaders repeatedly that the U.S. Senate rejected Obama's deal and that a Republican president would shred it to pieces, Fraser said. Now, the Paris Accord faces the same fate as the Kyoto Protocol, which also ended in failure. But even if Democrats retained control of the Senate, Obama learned in 2009 the difficulty of passing a global warming bill. That year, Obama failed to get a cap and trade bill through the Senate, even though his party controlled 59 seats. Republicans were able to block the cap and trade bill, and Obama abandoned the effort to focus on health care and tackling Wall Street. But avoiding the Senate again in 2016 meant a Democrat would have to win the 2016 election, which did not happen. Voters foiled their scheme in November of 2016, Lewis said. The next article that I have for you is off of Guerrilla Media Network. And it says, Department of Interior visits Bundy Ranch to investigate Gold Butte Monument designation. Carol Bundy, wife of rancher and political prisoner Cliven Bundy, was happy to get a visit from the Department of the Interior this week. Carol said she's still not quite trusting the turnaround in the department, but she is encouraged. The visit to the Bundy Ranch was by order of the Nevada Senator Dean Heller, who sent agents from the department out to do an investigation into whether or not there was any real justification to designate land where the Bundy's family owns rights to water as part of the Gold Butte Monument. Mrs. Bundy said they spent 5 or 6 hours walking the property and looking at areas where the Bundys own water rights. President Trump has ordered the Department of the Interior to review all designations of the national monuments greater than 100,000 acres created since 1996, and the area surrounding Bundy's ranch falls within that perimeter. If the Gold Butte designation stands, the Bundy family will not only lose grazing rights, they will also lose water rights owned by the Bundy family for decades. Mrs. Bundy states that she is cautiously optimistic, but was a bit disappointed that Ryan Zink did not accompany the agents on this trip. I would really like to speak with Ryan Zink, she said, but this is a start, and we are very thankful and happy that Senator Heller sent them out to take a look. The overall investigations of the agents were encouraging, says Carol Bundy. They told me other than a small amount of petroglyphs in an area that would take a pretty ambitious hike to get to, they saw nothing that justified this area for being designated as part of the monument. The Bundys have been disappointed in the past, and the Department of the Interior has rarely given them any reason to believe that they would do anything that went in the Bundys' favor. But the winds of change are beginning to blow in the West, and Carol Bundy just felt a small breeze of hope all the way from Washington, D.C. Carol's husband and 4 sons have been wrongfully jailed for almost a year and a half without the right to bail and speedy trial, and face life in prison for protesting an overly militarized Bureau of Land Management who surrounded the family with sniper teams in March and April of 2014. The next article and final article for the day is off of Liberty Writers, and it says, incredible, Trump just did the impossible for our veterans. The Obama administration was plagued with horror stories over repeated failures and sickening neglect within the Department of Veterans Affairs. Thousands of veterans died waiting for crucial medical care under Obama's watch. Obama vowed to restructure and reform the agency, but unsurprisingly, nothing happened. Fortunately, we now have a president who's ready to take care of our veterans. President Trump made it clear in his campaign that veterans will be a priority in his administration, mapping out a 10-point plan for VA reform. Today, the Washington Examiner reported that he is about to check one of those 10 points off the list. President Trump is launching a veterans complaint hotline. Any veteran could call this hotline and voice their complaints or concerns about the services they receive from the VA. This sounds like an amazing service that will finally hold the VA bureaucrats accountable and help veterans get the care they need. The service is doing a soft launch on June the 1st and is expected to be fully operational by August the 15th of 2017. Veterans can access the hotline by calling 855-948-2311. President Trump understands that our veterans deserve the very best, and he's going to personally make sure that they get it. So you might pass that information on to any veterans you know, especially if they have had issues with the VA. And again, that hotline number is 855-948-2311. That's all I have for you this morning. If you like what I'm doing here, please give it a thumbs up. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that, and that way you'll stay informed. Have a great day.